Welcome, everybody, to Hear Her Sports. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Elizabeth Emery. My guest this week is rower Sophie Calabrese. She visited the Hear Her Sports mini recording studio this summer just after winning a gold medal in the quad scull at the Calabrese Regatta in Mexico City. This was a particularly great win because the American team hadn't won for 6 years. Last week, she returned to the studio primarily to finish our discussion about how recruiting works. Sophie is a high school senior, and she shares details about her college selection process. She recently signed with her top choice, the University of Texas in Austin. We also talk about training, the intensity of seat racing, coaching herself, backwards treadmilling, how music and sports relate, the head of the Charles, and not losing. This is an excellent episode to share with high school athletes or their parents, with rowers and athletes that just need a little extra motivation to get a bit more from their sport. Sophie loves being competitive, loves being an athlete, and is pursuing elite rowing with real smarts. For those of you who listen all the way through the closing, you'll know that I sometimes sneak in an outtake. This time, there's an extra training idea from Sophie. Well, let's get to it. Welcome, Sophie, to Hear Her Sports. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me.
So you just won something very big. Can you talk about that and tell us what it is?
Yeah, I was recently, I think 3 weeks ago in Mexico City, participating in the Calabrese Regatta that happens every summer. It's like the lower tier of the junior national team. And I competed in the American quad, and we won the quad event. It was really awesome.
I understand that that was the first time it happened in a really long time.
Yeah, I think last time it happened was 2011. It's only happened twice before, so it was a really good win.
Super exciting. Yeah. You said it was the lower tier. I was reading on the U.S. rowing website, and I didn't really understand sort of the qualifications and how that all worked, and what's next for you?
There's the whole camp system, which I'm sure that you read about. I was invited to the high performance camp, which is the middle tier. There's a development camp, which is the lowest one. That's under 17 rowers go there to get in the system and work on their skills, see if they're coachable. And then the next level athletes are U18, under 18. They're invited to high performance camp where they actually get to compete at club nationals. And then selection camp are people who are under 19 who are prospects for the junior national team to compete in the boats there. And then for Calabrese, how it works, it's kind of in between high performance and selection. Usually, I think it's the higher end of high performance gets selected for Calabrese, obviously through lots of seat racing and stuff like that. And some of the people that aren't selected for the junior national team are selected for Calabrese down from selection. So, yeah.
The selection process seems so intense.
Yeah, it is. I think it's especially intense because I really come from not a very competitive team, and we do no seat racing at all. I didn't even know how to do it, and then I came into camp and they were like, all right, we're going to be doing seat racing every day, and I was very intimidated by it at first. There was this one day where I competed and we had rowed twice a day, and I had seat racing both in the morning and the afternoon. It was very tiring.
Can you explain how seat racing works?
Yeah, so there's standard seat racing, and then they did matrix seat racing there. So matrix seat racing is where they row every possible combination of the boat. For example, I was in a doubles matrix, which is where there were 3 doubles. There were the 6 of us that were being considered for the Calabrese quad. And we had to do 6 12-50 meter races because there were 6 combinations between the 3 boats. And we would race, switch the lineups in between the boats, then race again, then switch, and et cetera. And then the other seat racing is where you just switch 1 or 2 people out of a boat.
It's sort of hard to explain with rowing that it's not simply how strong you are,
yeah,
but there's all this other stuff that is involved.
Yeah.
Are you aware of that? I mean, how do you approach that? I mean, when you get in that seat racing, what are you thinking about? What are you trying to do?
I mean, I was really just I had to jump into seat racing. I didn't really have much strategies. I tried to find articles online and stuff about that. Try to get as much as I could as a leg up, because everybody else, or a lot of people there, were from competitive clubs where they do this every day. So I was just thinking, like, all right, this is it. I really want to go to Mexico. Like, I really want to. Like, it seems so fun. And so I just told myself every time I switched into a boat, or like if I stayed and the lineup was new, I was like, all right, we're going to talk to each other, we're going to communicate, and we're going to really push together. And like, we both want this, we all want this. Just go after it.
You said that you weren't from a competitive club. Are you personally competitive? Do you like competition?
I love competition. I was always that kid in gym class that took it seriously every day in middle school. And I think that there are a few people on my team who are like that, but for the most part, I think I am.
So what do you like about competition?
I don't know. I don't know if it's whether I hate losing or if I love winning, because winning is really great, but losing is just the worst. I don't know what it is about competition, just that feeling of like, I love just like, I think ever since I was little, like my kindergarten teacher was like, oh yeah, she loves using her body. She's gonna be a great athlete. And I know that I've always wanted to be an athlete. And I think that competition is just like the perfect, like, just like sports is like the perfect combination of competition and physical exertion. I don't know.
I think it's so interesting. I often ask athletes, do they like competition or do they like training? And there's definitely a divide. Like some people really like competition and some people they really like being physical. So you obviously fall into the competition category. When you won that quad race, I mean, is it satisfying to you, or are you already looking for the next race, or like what's your emotions when you won?
It was both the longest and the shortest race of my life. I'm from a scholastic team, so we usually race 1,500 meters. This was a 2,000-meter race, so I think it was the fourth 2,000-meter race I've ever done on the water, so it's a little bit different, but it was both the most fun race I've ever had and the most painful experience of my entire life, but it was just so much fun. I think as a boat, like I could tell that we were all like elated after the race. Like we were just really like, as tired as we were like really energized by the win. Like I was personally like, I was over the moon. But I think like as we were putting the boat away, I was like, all right, I want to do this for the junior national team. Like I can go after it. I want to do it.
So how do you have to get there? Like what's the next step?
So a lot of what they told us at HP camp, and especially in Canamex, was that a lot of us were of age to be invited to selection and be on the junior national team next year. So what HP and Canamex are like, they're providing us a platform to race at a somewhat higher level in preparation for junior national team. So a lot of us, they said they are on the track to be on the junior national team next year. Or not on the junior national team, but as part of selection camp to have a chance at a spot.
That's great.
Yeah. But
it's just nice that they're recognizing you. You had this great win.
Yeah.
They're obviously talking to you. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah. So what I have to do this next year is obviously train as hard as I can, like get as fast as I can. But I also have to stay in contact with the coaches that from camp, like they told us to, like send them 2K updates, because a lot of the invites are like based off of race results and 2K times, because like everything's based off of how fast you can row a 2,000-meter race. And go to an ID camp. There's actually an ID camp here in Cleveland in February, which I've done the past 3 years to like get an invite to one of the camps. So, yeah.
Let's talk numbers. What's your 2K time?
I'm at a 7:13 point something. I don't really remember.
It's fast.
Yeah.
So what kind of training are you doing? And let's go through the whole variety: on the water, off the water, cross training, like what you're going to do at the end of this season, that whole bit.
So what I did this past year, junior year, and what I hope to replicate in senior year is, so I guess going through a day, I signed up for a weight training class before school, partly to help with my rowing, but also to like help prepare for the college rowing schedule, because I want to row for D1 college, and their program's a lot more intense than mine. So I figured like waking up at 5:30 every day to go in and before school and work out, and then work out again after school as part of practice is like really going to help for junior year and senior year. Like if I do that for 2 years, that's like a pretty good replication of what it can kind of feel like. So I would get up at 5:30. I would go do weight training for like an hour before school starts, consisting of like arms and upper body Monday. Tuesdays and Thursdays were like muscular endurance. Wednesdays, lower body / full body, and Fridays were game days.
And are you doing that on your own, or do you have advisement?
It's an actual class,
Oh, okay.
so there's like a coach there, like helps us with form and stuff. So
is it through school?
Yeah, it's through school. It's really nice. I get PE credits.
So there you go.
Yeah. And then go through the school day, and then we'd have practice down at the boathouse at 4:30. If I'm in the team boat, I'm going to be in the 4 that we went to Scholastic Nationals. But if I'm not in the 4, I would go out in the single, which I also race and do pretty well in. I don't have a sculling coach, really. I've had like touch and go coaching, really. So a lot of my practice in the single is like by myself, like alone, like trying to work on, like, I think I have pretty good body awareness. So it's a lot of self-coaching.
And so for the team, are you doing only sweep, or are you doing sculling?
No, my team doesn't scull,
Okay.
really. I'm just in the 4.
Okay. I gather that your preferred is the sculling.
Yeah. I mean, sweeping's fine, but
Yeah.
sculling's great.
So what do you like about the sculling?
I like that it's not one-sided. I feel like people who like sweep for a while, like in college, I'm sure I'm going to get very like lopsided. I like how even sculling is, and I like how less muscle-bound it is. Like it's a lot about, there's a lot more emphasis on technique rather than just like hammering away at it as there is in sweep. I think it's definitely different. I haven't been in a cox boat for a little bit now, but when I wasn't, so for example, freshman year, I was in the junior 4 from our team. I went to Scholastic Nationals. I was 2-seat, and I was able to just like zone out during races. Like I couldn't tell you what happened during half of the races. Like I don't remember them at all. But then the next year I was switched to the stroke of the boat, and ever since then I remember like every second. Like I've just had to like stay like attuned to it and like pay attention. And it's a lot like that in smaller boats and sculling boats and the single, the quad too. Like I was 2-seat in the quad, and I had to make all the calls like during the race. So especially like I had to really like focus in on that.
Is that typical that the 2-seat makes the calls?
I think so. I think it's really whatever the crew decides on, but I think it's mostly.
So what are the roles of the 4 people?
So bow is to like steer and sometimes makes calls if like that's what the lineup is. 2-seat make calls generally. The 4-seat stroke is to like set the pace, and 3 seats just like not mess up.
Yeah. Your quad that won, did you feel that you meshed right away and that you were a good team right away? Because I know that's so important in rowing.
Yeah. I think we did a pretty good job of meshing right away. Like there's this one morning when the 4 of us were invited down to a morning practice over at HP camp with selection. The 4 of us from HP and the 4 of us from selection. And they told us they were going to put us in 2 quads to like look at the age-eligible Canamex for sculling. And they weren't really race pieces, but they were kind of race pieces because they were like minute on, minute off, you know. And our quad always beat the selection quad, and like suddenly we were being looked at. So I think that we did a pretty good job of meshing together, and like obviously it paid off, I think.
Right. Nice. So let's go back to training. So you're doing the weight training, you're doing on the boat training, and then so what happens in the winter?
In the winter, we switch to, since the winter here in Cleveland is pretty long and there are cold water rules,
Right.
we switch to erging in the winter, just like all winter long.
And here's a big question about sculling in Cleveland. You mentioned Cleveland.
Yeah.
The winters are bad. The river is
The river's bad.
the river is bad. So talk a little bit about the river and follow that up with how did you end up choosing sculling? Because that's probably the worst for that river.
Yeah. So I would say there's not even 500 meters of a straight stretch on the river. When I started sculling in the single, it was partly out of necessity because my team doesn't get the best results, and I wanted to get good results for stuff like the junior national team and college. And also I really like sculling, and singles I think are pretty fun to race. So that's why I added it. And when I first started sculling on this river, I had to row with a sculling mirror, which like nobody else I know from any part of the country has to do. So that took a long time to get used to, like seeing what's behind you as well as like focusing on technique, power, the piece, all of that. So the turning on the river is just a nightmare. And then when you add in like the boat traffic from especially Ignatius, because they're a big team, and all the other teams like WRA, and then the freighters, which are like moving buildings on the river, and you have to pull off to the side and then wait for them to pass. And if you're in a small boat, you could get sucked in. And yeah, it's just, it's great.
You'll have a lot of skills when you get off of it.
Oh, yeah.
Have you done other sports?
Yeah. So ever since I guess my kindergarten teacher was like, she wants to use her body. I was like, yeah, you're right. Like, I know I want to be an athlete. So I started like all these summer camps, like from like first grade to middle school, or I guess fifth grade. I tried all these summer camps. I tried everything like volleyball, basketball, soccer. I used to fence for a while. I even tried golf. Not a fan, but I think my next most serious sport was soccer. And then in the summer between 5th and 6th grade, I found a 2-week summer camp actually hosted by St. Ignatius. That was really, I was like, oh, rowing, that looks really cool. I want to try it. That's like the one sport I haven't done yet. And so I tried it, and like the first day I fell in love. We weren't even on the water, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. Like, I want to keep doing this. And so I found a way to keep rowing like just 3 times a week. It was recreational, but through another year long, like during the school year camp.
So what was it about rowing that you knew right away?
I don't even know. Whenever somebody asks me like why I love rowing so much, I don't even know why. I mean, I guess I know why, but I can't really put it into words. It's just something about it. It's just magical. I don't know. I think it's that pursuit of like the perfect stroke that you get like maybe once, and then you just keep trying to replicate it, plus add the competition. Like, I love competition. So yeah.
Cool. And you are going to continue in college. Do you have schools in mind?
Yeah, I'm in the middle of the recruiting process right now. I'm talking to a few schools. Hopefully get a deal closed up soon.
How does recruiting work?
So you, like, if you have a recruiting profile, then colleges and coaches can like look at your stats. You can put your race results on there, like how tall you are, how much you weigh, all that. And like they can reach out to you, or you can reach out to them and be like, hey, I'm really interested in your school. And then a lot of the time, like, you set up a call and ask each other questions, and then go on maybe on an unofficial visit. And then as it progresses, like, then I move to official visits, which I'm in the middle of scheduling right now. And then a school will hopefully make a deal or recruit you.
How are you going to balance the training of a D1 school sports program and school?
I don't know. We'll figure it out. I know that D1 programs have a limit on how many hours they can keep you, but everybody has loopholes or ways around it, like not including the warm-up. Like, you have to do that on your own. Like, it's recommended. So everybody has their little ways, but for the most part, it's like 20 hours a week. And I think that not being button seat in school for like 8 hours or 7 hours a day will really help with that. Like, having only like 1 or 2 classes a day and then going to practice.
Mm-hmm. What are you going to study?
I'm thinking really strongly about going into music performance, actually, and then as a backup, sports medicine.
And what instrument or what? Or voice or?
I play French horn.
Oh.
Yeah.
And after school?
If I go into music performance, then hopefully get into a conservatory for grad school and then just audition around.
Mm-hmm. And how long do you want to stay involved in rowing?
As long as possible. I mean, at this point, like, it's become such a part of me and I love it so much.
And what do your friends think about you rowing?
A lot of my friends are on the team, actually, but my friends who aren't think I'm a badass.
That's good. And do they appreciate your interest in, like going to the world championships and things like that?
Yeah, I think a lot of my friends are like really supportive of it. Like, they're like, oh, I'm going to go there with you. Like, I'm going to get tickets. Like, when you're in the Olympics, I'm going to be there. Just let me know, and like all that.
Are Olympics in your hopes?
As far as I can say right now, they're a dream, but I think like the farthest I can say I know I want to do is U23s, but we'll see from there.
Right. I don't know. What are you expecting for this coming year?
My goals, I'm preparing for the head of the Charles. If I get a bid in for the single, I raced the single this last fall and I got 7th, which is pretty good, but I think I can do a little bit better. So I'm putting in another bid that'll be the big regatta of the fall if I get in. And then winter, I'm going to train my butt off because my goal by the end of the year, the school year, is to be either sub 7 or as close to sub 7 2K-wise as I can get. And then hopefully an invite to selection camp, and then training for Midwest, which is the qualifying regatta for Scholastic Nationals.
What do you need to work on?
A lot of things. I think the biggest thing is work on my catches. Like, the coach for the quad said something that really resonated with me. It was, there is no such thing as a late catch, just an unprepared one. And I think that's going to be the basis for a lot of my technique work for the coming months.
And what are you really good at?
I think I'm good at just like going at it. I think I'm a pretty strong person. So I think I'm just like really good. I have a good mindset, I think. So I have like really good at just like racing.
Does defeat get you down?
It does, because I really don't like to lose. I don't like, some people on my team, like, I was in a boat, we didn't get like top 5 or whatever. It was fall season, it was like a head race. We didn't do very well, and they were like, oh, that's okay. I was like, what are you talking about? No, it's not. Like, we have to do better, like we always do.
How do you manage defeat? I mean, like, what happens, like in this case, what happened next?
I thought about the race, how I could have done better and how we could have done better as a boat. And like, it's not really in my power to tell the boat what they need to fix, but I just really focused on like what I needed to do, like whether that was mental toughness or like it was the sweep boats, like my sweep technique, which is not as good as my sculling. Yeah. Just like working on that, like every practice I tried to like keep what I needed to work on in my mind and like work on.
Since you're doing both the single and team boats, like how would you compare the two for you personally? Like your relationship to being alone out there versus being with other people?
Being alone is definitely more of a struggle. You feel everything even more because it's just you moving the boat. Every mistake is your fault because you're the only person in the boat. And you don't have a coxswain. I think that's the biggest advantage to a team boat. I really appreciate having a coxswain, like someone yelling at you. Otherwise, the silence is just like really unbearable, especially with all the pain of the race.
Do you like rowing with a team?
I do. Yeah. I enjoy team boats. Like, I'm excited in college to be in team boats, but at the same time, I really enjoy the single.
Will you race both in college?
I know that a lot of, like, the majority of colleges don't race sculling boats, but I know the ones I'm interested in, like, they train in them, like, they train in small boats. I think a lot of colleges are starting to do that more.
Interesting. And do you have role models?
I think that I don't really ever think about if I have role models. I have, like, just, like, whatever, like, whoever's being highlighted at the moment, like on the daily Instagram posts, like especially with U23s, like there are recurring names that like I recognize, I guess, like Jevy Stone, like Emily Caulfeltz. I think it's people like that who like really work hard and know what they want. And like they're single scullers, they're small boat people, and I really think that they resonate with me.
Anybody outside of sports that you think about a lot?
I think my mom, because she became certified to like take me out on the water, which is how I'm able to go out in the single. She doesn't know the first thing about rowing. Like I was the one who got her into erging and all of that. So she's the one who takes me out when like I can't go with the team because I'm not in the boat or whatever, for whatever reason. So even though she's not a coach, like I'm able to like go out and practice, and like my success is because of her.
That's nice. So she's getting up at 5:30 in the morning?
Yeah, sometimes we'll go before school, like down on the water, not just to weightlift.
Yeah. Wow. Are you weightlifting at the boathouse?
No, the weight training class is at the school. There's a weight room in the basement where our groom is. It's the worst.
Do you like weightlifting?
Yeah, I do. I'm a big fan.
Are you?
Yeah.
How come?
I don't know. I just like sports and like physical exertion. I don't know. I just really like it.
What gets you all fired up? Like, what's really important to you?
I really think, like, I've brought this up a lot, but like the thought of like not losing, that's like what really like gets me into the zone. Like listening to music, like everybody has their pre-game or pre-race routine. Everybody's different. Like they require a different amount of like interaction with each other, like being relaxed or like being serious and all that. Mine usually involves like listening to music, being pretty relaxed and like loose and like joking around with everybody. But when I get in the boat to warm up, to go up to the start of the race, and it's down to business and like focused in.
Is there anything else that's important to you?
Just rowing and music, pretty much. That's my life. Like my two extracurriculars, like I know a ton of people that are like 50 different things they're doing outside of school, and I just have the two, but they take up a lot of time.
How did you manage to figure out those two things? I mean, you're pretty young.
Yeah. I mean, I was lucky and I was able to like figure them both out pretty early. Like, I go to Shaker Heights High School, and like the Shaker school system requires everybody to start learning an instrument or like voice, choir in 5th grade. So I actually have a pretty funny story about how I picked the French horn. So they had like an instrument demo day where like we all got to see them and like try them, and they were like, go home, tell your parents what you want, come back with a form, and we'll get you an instrument, start like put you in band, orchestra, choir. And so I thought I was a really smart child, like I was pretty full of myself. And so I came home, I told my mom I wanted to play the French horn, because in my mind that was the one with the long slide, because it was the fancy one. Like, nope, none of them have slides, so must be the one with the special name. Turns out it was the trombone, and my mom came home with the real French horn. I was like, what is this? I'm not playing this. And then like 6 years later, still playing it, and I wanted to do it professionally. So, yeah.
Do you want to play in an orchestra?
Yes.
Oh, cool. Do you go to the orchestra?
I do. I just went to a concert a few days ago. It was amazing.
What kind of music do you like?
I prefer the romantic era of classical music.
Are you going to have trouble finding a school that has both music and rowing?
Actually, not as hard as I thought it. It's not as hard as I thought it would have been, because the 4 big schools I'm looking at all have professors that I like, and they at least 2 or 3 of them have good music programs, and like they all have D1 rowing. So it's not as hard as I thought.
I did a really lousy job of searching for schools. How did you do the research and get where you wanted to? I mean, and find professors that you were interested in, things like that.
Yeah. So up until this year, when I had an existential crisis, I thought that I wanted to go into the sciences and like physical therapy and stuff like that, which is why it's my backup major now. But then this year I was signed up for a full AP load, like all advanced classes. And like halfway through the year, I realized like I'm not actually passionate about any of these. Like I'm not doing as well as I thought. Like, what am I doing here? So I took a step back and like looked at what I'm doing, which is like 2 other things besides school, to see what I'm really passionate about. And I was really passionate about my 2 extracurriculars, that's music and rowing. So I thought maybe I could go into music performance, because I really enjoy doing that. I'm in a local youth orchestra, the Cleveland Orchestra Youth Orchestra, which is how I know I want to be in an orchestra. It's so much fun. I love doing it.
Sort of like a team sport.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So I assume the existential crisis was having all those AP classes and realizing you weren't interested? Or was there something else?
I I'd study hall with a few of my friends, and like every day I would go in and be like, I literally don't know what I'm doing with my life. And like I know a lot of high schoolers go through that. It's not fun.
Yeah. I'm pretty impressed that you figured it out. It sounds like pretty quickly as well.
Yeah, not as quickly as I liked. I'm still a little hesitant about it, but I feel like the only way I can go into music performance is be confident about it. So that's what I'm going to try and do.
Do you have a support crew? It sounds like your friends certainly are supportive. Anybody else?
My parents are incredibly supportive of what I do. Like, I wouldn't be able to do anything I do without them, especially my mom, my dad. My brother is very supportive of my rowing. Like, he always texts me. I got him into the rowing. Like, he goes to University of Cincinnati. He was going in to play rugby, but then he didn't like the guys on the team as much. I kept telling him you should try rowing, and he did, and he loves it. So he like texts me updates, and I text him updates. Yeah. And my private teacher is really supportive of what I do on the music side as well as the rowing side. Like, she comes to the local regatta every year. Yeah.
I want to go back to coaching. I mean, it's pretty impressive to me that you're coaching yourself. like how are you? I don't know. I don't know. I don't really know what to ask because I find that in rowing, the coaching was such a big part of the rowing that I did. So it's curious to me that you're coaching solo. And so how are you getting input, and has that been important? Or do you feel like you need the input?
Yeah. So I started rowing the single sophomore year. And like I said, my coaching, especially on the sculling side, has been very touch and go, which is like there have been some amazing people from the local rowing community who have volunteered to like help. Like I would go out in the morning and row with them, and it was amazing. And I got like a training plan from a WRA coach. He was my sculling coach for like a few months, but then like they're adults with like lives, and like life got in the way, which is fine. Like I totally understand. And it's totally okay because like I learned a lot from the pointers they gave me. And like when that started to happen, I was like, all right, I guess I'm going to have to like start self-coaching and like all of this. And like I just focused on the pointers that they gave me. And like I've been able to like reconnect every so often with one of them.
And I mean, I was a cyclist, so we had, the day that you did long, and then you had interval day and you had sprint day. Do you divide your week or your training into things like that?
Yeah. In the fall, I try to do a lot of steady state work, which is like longer pieces, like not necessarily low intensity, but like lower intensity with like maybe like 1 or 2 days of like shorter, harder work. And then the spring, it's still a fair amount of steady state because steady state is like it'll help you build a really great aerobic base that you need to build your anaerobic side that you really need for spring. But then in the spring, you really increase like the amount of short, hard work you do.
And are you doing, any yoga or mental training or things like that?
I don't do yoga. I'm not very flexible, which I probably should be working on.
It's funny. Every time I ask that question, everybody who doesn't do yoga says, "Oh, I should be."
Yeah, I feel like I should be.
The same way.
Yeah, I feel like I should be at least stretching. But at camp during the week leading up to the competition in Mexico, the quads coach, she shared a really valuable mental training like worksheet kind of. It was a packet on how to like prep yourself mentally and like exercises you can do. And I think I tried some of them, like they're pretty helpful, and I think I'm going to start incorporating them into my daily like racing
like what
thing.
What
Yes.
what was something good that you took away?
Well, one of it was like kind of like a personal catchphrase, which I kind of used before, but like it kind of like reinforced using it. It's like a short phrase that you can tell yourself to like help you like get through a race or like pump you up for it, like whatever. Mine is give me more, like whether that's pain or like whatever it is, it usually like that really helps.
What's the hardest part for you during the races?
I would say not giving up because, I mean, this past spring, I raced the single and the 4 at Midwest, which is 2 days, and I was in the single and the 4, so I had total 6 races, and that's 1,500 meters. And none of my other competitors, at least in the single I knew, were doing that many races. And I think, especially in the single final, when I was just all by myself and like there were 2 girls like on either side of me that were like making, like whenever they made moves, I like tried to make moves back and like gain distance back on them. And like it was very hard not to like give up and be like, second or third wouldn't be too bad. And I guess if I got second, I'd still qualify. But then like that fighting spirit of like not wanting to lose like kicked in, and like I just like powered through. I don't know. It's something that just like, I don't know. There's something about it. Just singles hard.
Do you pay attention to nutrition?
Yes. Now more than ever, I think. Well, more so over the years. Like I used to like eat whatever I want, like I still kind of do. But I started cutting down to like dessert 3 times a week and like really increasing the amount of protein that I eat, especially during like intense training periods. It's definitely on race days. Like I always eat the same breakfast on race days. It's like high protein, high carb, well not high protein, like moderate protein, like high carbs, because carbs are really good before a race.
What do you eat? What's your race breakfast?
A bagel with peanut butter and banana slices and milk. Yeah. Oh, and the night before, I always have pasta because I love carb loading, and carb loading really helps. And like I love salads. Like eating greens isn't really a problem. It's like making sure I have enough of them around, I think.
Right. Do you have any advice for anybody who wants to get into rowing?
I think it would be not to give up. Like a lot of it, I think, like I said before, the main reason I love rowing is like trying to find that perfect stroke. Like it gets very frustrating at times, and especially if you're like in smaller boats or with other people can be very frustrating too. Just like not giving up, because it's very rewarding and your hard work will pay off.
How do you manage the frustration of being in a boat with somebody who's maybe not doing exactly what you want them to do or what you think they could do or whatever?
It's very mentally challenging because I don't want to go off on them, because there's not really much they can do to change it, or if there is, they're choosing not to. It's really hard. I just tell myself, like, I have the single, like, I have other ways, like, there are other boats that I can be in that are good, like, this isn't the one I'm going to be racing in, stuff like that.
You said that your current program at Shaker is not super competitive. I mean, that's going to be really different in college.
Yeah. I really think so. If college is, well, if HP camp is anything like college is, then I'm super excited and can't wait, because I was a little bit afraid, like, going to HP camp. I was a little afraid for college because I come from a not super competitive team, and not, I guess the training could be like a lot harder or something like that, but like not as hard as other teams. So I was worried that I wouldn't be able to take it since I haven't been used to it. And like a lot of other kids from like harder working programs are like not handling college. I was like, what if I can't handle it? But I think if this summer is any indication, I think I'm really excited. Like, I think I can handle it.
Do you think that it's going to, especially your first year, it's going to be sort of a challenge? Because, I mean, right now you're obviously one of the better people on the team, and then you're going to go into this college program where that may not be the case. Do you think that's going to be challenging?
I would rather be a small fish in a big pond than a big fish in a small pond. Again, I think this summer really helped me see that. I thought I would struggle with that, but then like having people around that were faster than me, like taller than me, which is it's really great because it brought out my competitive side. Like I push myself hard on the pieces. It wasn't necessarily easier, but it was easier to push myself when a person who is faster and stronger than you is sitting right there next to you rather than having to imagine them being there.
Do you see any similarities in sort of how you're approaching music and how you're approaching the rowing?
Yeah, there are a lot of similarities I've noticed, and other people have too. Like, I went to Craftsbury last summer for 2 weeks to work on my sculling because I had the goal of being in a quad for the junior national team, and so far it's paid off. And one of the coaches there asked me if I played a musical instrument. I was like, yeah, and he was like, oh, that's good. If you didn't, I would recommend that you do. I recommend that to all of my scullers because there's a huge similarity, especially in sculling, like in a single, because, well, there's obviously like breathing and like technique and all that, but it's like more like the regimen, I think. It's like sitting down, like either in the boat or on the practice chair, like mentally preparing yourself for like what you're going to do, thinking through it, and then executing it. There's a warm up, the actual work, all of that.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Wow. Do you get nervous when you perform or when you go out rowing?
Not so much in rowing. That kind of went away freshman year. Like I would get adrenaline and all of that before a race. And that just went away, unfortunately, because adrenaline got me through the races. So these past 2 years have been a lot more painful. But I do get pretty bad stage fright, I guess, when I perform. And the last time I performed, I actually got a new symptom of stage fright, dry mouth, which is not fun, especially when you play a wind instrument.
Yeah. So how do you deal with the stage fright?
Oh, I guess my catchphrase for French horn playing would be, you want to perform for them, you want to show off, which is like French horn, like it's so easy to miss notes and like you're always going to miss notes. So like if you're going to miss notes, you might as well like make it worth it. So I think that's something I try to tell myself. It's definitely hard getting through it, just like a race. It's just like keep pushing through even though you make mistakes and like wanting to give up, just push through it.
You mentioned showing off. Sort of what's your opinion about showing off? And
I think there are appropriate times for showing off and there are not appropriate times, like times to be respectful.
Yeah. Do you feel like you're confident?
I think I'm pretty confident in general. I think I could play a little bit more confidently at times, but yeah.
It's been really nice to have you here, Sophie. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's been great.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for taking the time to do the follow-up interview because so much has happened since we last talked.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me.
Let's start with the head of the Charles. How did that go, and how was training for that?
Head of the Charles has always been a really fun regatta. This is my third year going. I've been since I was a sophomore. Last year was the first time I raced a single there, so this year was the second time. It's so fun. I don't even know what it is about it, but it's so like the racing, when you're not racing, it's fun just to walk around. My first time, I think there were 25 other girls in my race. I got 7th, so for my first year I was pretty happy with that. And with my spotty training, I think I was pretty pleased with that. But this year I definitely wanted to medal. And since there were over 30 boats in the race, they up it from top 3 get a medal to top 4. And so top 4 was my goal, like cut 3 places. And I was able to do that. I got 4th this year and it was just so fun. I think what helped get like those 3 places back were actually getting the turns right. Cause my first year doing it, I was just kind of like, oh my gosh, like head of the Charles, it's a huge deal. I can't believe I'm here. But this year, I think I kind of just like buckled down, was like got the turns. I think I could have pushed myself a little bit harder over the whole race to make up more time, but I was pretty pleased with it.
Great. The other thing that has happened, and the main reason that I wanted to have you here, was to talk about choosing a college.
Yeah.
And I can't remember exactly where you were in the process, but you had sort of started the process. So walk me through what happened since then. And I know that you've just signed with the University of Texas, so talk about that too.
Yeah. So I think back when we met, it was like August, end of August. So that's when I was starting to go on my official visits or like just finishing up planning them. And so for me at that point, I was still interested in, I think, 4 colleges, but like I was seriously interested. And I'd already planned most of them. Texas was my top one, and so I made that my first official visit. So just in case anything big happened, I could cancel all the other ones without like missing a regatta. So I think my recruiting process was like a little bit different than everybody else's because their main focus is on the rowing, obviously the major, but I think the rowing is a little bit more important, like for other people, just because like I've noticed a lot of rowers are like science or math majors, and a lot of big universities just have good science and math programs. But I'm going to be a music performance major, and not all colleges definitely don't have a good music performance school or like music school. So music was definitely a big factor in the decision for me. When I made the big decision to switch from a physical therapy to music major, it cut like 10 colleges off my list, which I mean made it easier, but also it also made it harder because like what rowing school is going to have a good music school? And it's so convenient because Texas did. So I went down for my official visit. It was really awesome. I think I went a few weeks after we met the first time, so September 14th, the weekend of September 14th. I can't remember. I got in, and then the morning, there was some girls there, some other recruits, and they all took us down to morning practice, got to sit in the launch and watch pair practice, which was really cool. I've only been in a pair once. So.
I was going to ask you that. Or do you plan to do pair when you're down there?
Yeah, I hope so. I'm actually, I really want to, because I've only been in a pair once, and I think they're a bunch of fun. And then after practice, we met our hosts. We all stayed in a house, not in a dorm with some of the rowers. And they took us to a breakfast, and they had a panel of rowers answer questions that we had. And then there's so much that happened because they have to fit everything. You only have like 48 hours, so they have to fit in as much as possible. And then I think they took us around campus in little golf carts and just like showed us around and told us about some stuff. Then we had lunch in the tank. I can't remember what it actually stands for. It's like the nutritional center for athletes, which is amazing. They have like such high quality food. It's I can't wait. And then so the tank is in the stadium where like all the athletes go, and they just gave us a tour of the athletic facilities there. So the erg room that they have, which is pretty nice. the weight room for all the athletes, which is also really nice. There's like little longhorns on everything, every single weight. The medical facilities that they have for athletes, like the stuff they have there is crazy. Like if you get sick and you're just a regular student, like you have to go to the campus doctor, and usually they're not so good. But athletes can go there instead, and it's like,
wow, that's fancy.
Yeah, and they have like real doctors there, but they also have like students in training there, working there with athletes. It's just so cool.
And I suspect a full range of physical therapists.
Oh
all
yeah,
that stuff
like
too.
I think each team has at least one that like travels with them and stuff, and is like specializes, and so they know all the girls and stuff like that. And then I think they had us meet like each of the little groups of families. It was me and my mom that went. They had us meet with the academic advisors to see if we had any questions. But like, again, because the music process, I don't really, we just kind of talked about what that would be like.
What attracted you to the music department at Texas? Well, what attracted you both to the music department and to the rowing? Like, what's special about each of those things?
Yeah. So over the summer, before HP camp, I went to music camp, just like French horn only music camp. And it's like up in the same area, so it kind of made sense. And I met the University of Texas horn professor while I was there, and it was kind of convenient because it was on my list at the time. And like I met with him during an open studio, and he was so nice, and he was awesome. He's an amazing player, and I watched him teach. I didn't get the opportunity to actually work with him, but I was able to see him teach, and I asked him a few questions, and he just seems awesome. And then for Texas, when I was down there during the second on the water practice, it was the morning before we left. It was Sunday morning. I got to sit in the launch with the head coach, Coach O'Neill, with a few other girls and watch the eights practice. And I think what was so cool was, like, I was expecting camaraderie, like, you know, just like, especially with rowing, I think more than other sports, there's more togetherness. But I really wasn't expecting the amount of togetherness I saw on the Texas team. It was just so awesome because, like, during pieces, when they were racing each other, and even though it's early in the season, they're still racing each other as much as they can, like going all out. And they were like, just all of a sudden I heard this one girl like yell out, like, "Go Texas, hook 'em," like to the other boat. And they were just encouraging each other, like the competition during the piece. And then after their erg piece, the day before in the erg room, like immediately after, they turned to each other and like gave each other high fives and stuff like that. Like it was so cool. Just to the amount of camaraderie that the team has. It's so exciting. And
do you get a sense what the sort of, I guess, what the attitude of female sports is there?
I feel like every single woman on that team really wants to prove how good they are and how, like, show how hard they're working and just put it all out there. I really got that sense from the official visit.
One of the things that struck me was it is a very warm place.
Yeah. That's another thing. I actually really appreciate that they get to row all year round.
Right. It's going to be interesting to see how you react to rowing on the water year round.
Yeah. I think it'll be nice. Like everybody will be in, like, I know, like on their Instagram story, I've seen them in like leggings and stuff when it's 40 or 50 degrees, but it's like summer for me. So yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. You were in the middle of describing the process of being on the recruiting trip. So what happened next?
After the advisor meeting, that's the point where they just started taking families off separately to talk with the head coach one-on-one. And then it came time for my meeting with the head coach. It was, I can't remember how long it was. It was right before the second afternoon erging practice. And it was just generally just sit down, talk a little bit, because at that point I'd only been talking with the assistant coach. And at the end, in retrospect, this is probably a little bit rude, but I was very excited about going to Texas, and I'd gotten an offer at that point, and I really wanted to go to Texas. It's so expensive for out of state, so I needed money to go there. So near the end of the visit, the meeting with the head coach, I said, "I know I probably shouldn't say this, but how much money would you be able to give me to come here?" And he laughed and he said, "I'll get back to you tomorrow." And then we went to the erging practice, and then we went off with our hosts and we had dinner. We went to a sushi place. It was really nice. And then we woke up the next day. They had morning practice. We got to eat tacos. The tacos were really good. And then we basically had the afternoon off. So I went to get barbecue with my mom. Again, it was so good. The food there is so good. In the late afternoon, there's a tailgate party before the football game because the football game is part of the visit. And at the tailgate party, that's when he made the offer, and it kind of sounded like he was expecting me to go home and think about it and then accept it. But it was enough money for me to it's definitely enough money for me to say yes, on the spot. So I did, and my mom's like, you should shake his hand, just make it as official as possible, even though it's a verbal commit. But so that's when I committed, and then we went to the football game. It was just a blast.
Is that verbal commitment pretty rock solid?
On
both sides?
Yeah, from what I can tell in rowing, my mom, as soon as it happened, she was all over the internet trying to find answers, how solid is this? Has a college ever backed out? And she hasn't, at least for rowing, she hasn't found much evidence of either side backing out. It's extremely unheard of, I think.
Right. So have you made any other further commitments other than that verbal commitment?
Yeah. National Signing Day, which was last week, I think
okay.
on Wednesday, is when I officially signed the letter of intent.
And did anything happen in between those two dates?
No, not really. There were actually some rules after that things I couldn't do. There were only a certain number of times I could contact them in person, at the Charles or something.
Is the coach at this point, now that you've signed, are they saying, what you have to do between now and then? And will they give you summer training? And when do you show up?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he said that after I committed, he was like, don't talk to your coach. I'm your coach now. So I think that if I have any questions about what I should be doing, I guess I should ask him. But based on how well my winter went last year, I think I'll try and do the same thing, pushing myself more, but generally about the same plan. And then we'll see what happens in the summer.
Right. One of the things I noticed both in the last conversation and this conversation is that your preparation and training is so smart. I mean, between signing up for the weight training class so that you certainly got more strong, but also so that you sort of prepped yourself for the rigor of college, just starting to scull because you weren't getting what you wanted from the team. And I just wonder, do you have any thoughts about, being a smart athlete versus sort of the stereotypical dumb jock?
Yeah, I think the situation of the team combined with how athletic and competitive I think I am as a person kind of forced me to become smart about it, because if I wanted to be competitive, I couldn't just listen to what my coach told me to do and just sit down and work in an 8 when it's not really as effective as working in the single and actually working towards a goal, a competitive goal would be. So I think that's what really made me it was my love for rowing, and I knew that I wanted to do it later, combined with the fact that the team just wasn't, I think, if I just followed what he said, gonna prepare me for college.
Last time we spoke, you mentioned using the idea of an unprepared catch as sort of the basis of your training.
Oh, yeah.
How's that been going, and do you have any new thoughts about that?
I think so I started working that the summer I got back from HV camp because that was a big emphasis in the quad, a prepared catch. I started working on it very actively at first, and then I just kind of not forgot about it, but I kind of just focused on getting more meters in as preparation for the Charles once I got news that my bid had been accepted. And then I noticed in videos, I have my mom take videos as part of the self-coaching, and I noticed that my catches had just gotten better even when I hadn't been thinking about it. So I think it has gotten better, and I think my form has gotten a lot better, which I'm pretty proud of.
How often are you videotaping? Do you do that every day?
Not every day. I probably should be doing a little bit more, but I try to have her do it every so often just so I see what I should be doing. And I think I've gotten a pretty good idea of what it's supposed to feel like, or what the different changes are supposed to feel like, I guess.
Right, cool. Do you also watch, videos of other people?
Not really. I feel like everybody has a different way. It's crazy, but there's so many different types of ways to row. And obviously there are efficient ones and inefficient ones, but even among the efficient ones, there's so much variation. So I think it's really just finding what works for you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. What have you gained from being an athlete?
I think, my mom is always, my parents have been extremely, they've always pushed me to teach me to work hard and stuff like that. But I feel like being an athlete, especially student athlete, with all the work I have to do, is what helped reinforce it. Like being able to do the same amount of homework as everybody else, but still have like a few hours of practice and like travel time on top of that. And then also practicing for music. Time management, I think, is a big skill. And then just persistence is a big thing.
Well, great. I really appreciate you being here again. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you so much for having me.
Sure. Well, congratulations on everything.
Thank you.
Thanks to this week's guest, Sophie Calabrese, and thanks to you for listening. Hear Her Sports was started to increase media coverage of female athletes and women in sport. 44% of athletes are women, and only 4% of sports media coverage is about women. That's not a number, it's a rounding error. As women, we're all going to benefit from speaking way up, telling our stories, and listening to stories of incredible women like my sporty, adventurous guests. Please subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or through your favorite podcast player, and subscribe to the Hear Her Sports newsletter or donate on hearhersports.com. A big thank you to sponsors Agnes Studio, the band Goldmines, the blog She Rides a Bike, and Leap Strategies. I'll be back in 2 weeks. Bye-bye. Did you do anything else other than running today?
Yeah. So this is actually kind of weird, but like nobody really like loves erging. So sometimes as a substitute, I'll do backwards walking on the treadmill when it's at max incline for like a long time, like 30 minutes at a time. And like I think it works just about the same muscle groups. So.
Oh, really?
It feels like it. So
wow.
And it's cardio too. So
I
sometimes do that.
Well, good. So not a rest day, I guess.
No, Sundays are my rest day.
Oh, okay. And do you take full off on Sundays?
Yeah.
Cool.
Have you ever wanted to know how to win a Formula One Grand Prix? I mean really know about the driver tactics from the cockpit, the strategy calls from the pit wall, and even the mind games in the paddock. There's a lot more that goes into winning a Grand Prix than just 90 minutes of racing. So every week on the F1 Strategy Report, we're taking a deep dive into the decisions that shape every result. Hey there, my name is Michael Laminato, and every week I'm joined by an expert guest from the paddock to talk through the big calls that won the race and the missteps that resulted in bitter defeat. Before every race, we'll look back at the previous year's result and consult the current form guide, and we'll be in your feed after every Grand Prix dissecting the outcome and what it means for the championship. So for your regular hit of Formula One analysis, subscribe to the F1 Strategy Report wherever you get your favourite podcasts. The Strategy Report is a Beer Mogul podcast on the Evergreen Podcasts network. My name's Michael Laminato, and I'll catch you after the checkered flag.